Welcome to LDI 1.2, Stress Can Cause Sneezes. This shows up on page 7 of your text. The article Stress Can Cause Sneezes from the New York Times, January 21st, 1997, suggests that stress doubles a person's risk of getting a cold. Acute stress, lasting maybe only a few minutes, can lead to colds. One mystery that is still prevalent in cold research is while many individuals are infected with the cold virus, very few actually get the cold. That is, go clinical, start sneezing and hacking and coughing, all that fun stuff. On average, up to 90% of people exposed to the cold virus become infected, meaning that the virus multiplies in the body, but only 40% actually become sick or go clinical. One researcher thinks that the accumulation of stress tips the infected person over into illness. The percentage of people exposed to cold viruses who actually get a cold is 40%. The researcher would like to assess if stress increases this percentage. So the population of interest is people who are under acute stress. State the appropriate hypotheses for assessing the researcher's theory. Okay, so key thing here before we get started on this is that notice that the population of interest that we're talking about are people who are under acute stress. Okay, so the null and the alternate are going to both refer to that particular population. All right, so let's go ahead and see if we can come up with a reasonable null and alternate hypotheses here. Okay, so the null hypothesis would go something like this: of the people under stress, so that would be like college students around midterm time. Okay, so actually it's acute stress. Let's go ahead and make it so it's really midterm time, right? Under acute stress, 40% get colds. Of those exposed to the cold virus, of course. Actually go clinical, start sneezing, start hacking, and everything, okay? All right, so notice that what we're saying here is that if those people under acute stress, 40% of those exposed get a cold. So that's the status quo. That's what they're saying would happen even if you weren't stressed. In other words, stress has no effect to the percentage of people who are getting colds. Stress or not, 40% of you are going to get a cold, okay? Now that's not what the researcher believes. What does the researcher believe? Well, it start off basically the same because we're talking about the same population. It says of the people under acute stress, now what's it going to be? It's more than 40%, right? Of those exposed will get a cold, okay? So the key thing here to realize is that, again, just like we talked about in LDI 1.1, is that the status quo goes in the null hypothesis, okay? In many ways, it's usually easier, and it's actually more common that we write the alternate hypothesis first, because that's what we feel is true as a researcher, okay? And so what we felt as a researcher was that more than 40% would get a cold, whereas respect to the null is that 40% of those exposed get a cold. In other words, no difference than the population that is not stressed, okay? Okay, well, hopefully that makes sense, and get that all written up, and we'll see you all back here for LDI 1.3.